So Morgan, what's this box is about?
So this box is an emergency shut-off switch for the heating system. So if I were to turn this off right here and the system were running, you would hear it just shut down immediately. So oil systems would be running, they're fairly loud, you can hear them from upstairs, and this would disconnect the power to the heating system.
Okay.
Today, for oil-fired systems, you want that emergency switch to be out here, outside the stairs to the basement. So the idea is like, if you have a fire in the basement, you don't want to open this door and have that fire draft up through the home. You want to be able to emergency shut off the boiler from out here.
Okay.
And so right now, this is active probably. Yeah, come over here, you can take a look.
Yeah.
So you actually have a lever on the right, which is your on-off switch, and that will actually disconnect the power. And so you can see right now when I switch that off, I got no power here, but I have power up here because that's the feed.
Yeah.
If I turn it on, now I have power on down here.
Okay.
And these are fused. So we have a 15 amp circuit. These fuses will blow if there's overcurrent. Today, we would just use a regular switch, almost like this switch right here. It's just like a regular light switch. But you'll have a red plate on it that says emergency heating system shut off.
Yeah.
And again, you want that switch out here so you don't have to open the door if there's an emergency or a fire.
Yeah.
And allow that air to flow up and cause the fire to spread. So this is safe once it's nice and closed and secure, and it will still work. Fuses still work today. There's nothing really wrong with fused circuits. The only issue with fused circuits that are a hazard is when you can put the wrong size fuse on a fused circuit. So for example, I just said this is a 15 amp circuit. The wire feeding this circuit is gonna be a 14 gauge wire. If I can put a 20 amp fuse in there, now I need more current to flow through that wire to actually blow that fuse. And if I have more current going through that 14 gauge wire, it could actually cause that wire to heat up before the fuse blows.
Yeah.
And once that wire's hot, that's what causes electrical fires.
Yeah.
Hot wires are definitely a huge hazard for fire. So that's why people don't like fuses so much, because they screw right in and you can put a different fuse.
Human error.
Human error, exactly. Human error is always a concern. And breakers are much safer for that purpose. You don't have to open up anything to take it out. The other thing about this is in order to open this to change the fuse, you have to turn this off, open the panel box, and now I can stick my finger in here to change the fuse. And if I touch this screw right here, that's hot. So we always suggest people upgrade these to switches just because you can't account for human error. You don't want somebody to get injured.
Yeah.
But as long as they're used properly and safely, fuses are fine. You want a handrail that's graspable that goes all the way down the stairs. We have that little flimsy board up there that they're using for a partial handrail. You really want it to come all the way down here to have something to grab onto.
Yeah.
If there's laundry down here, that can get a little tricky because how do you fit through here with your laundry and stuff? So we'll take a look at that to see if you have laundry here. This little guy right here is...
And what about this opening? Is it safe?
So you never want to have open spaces on the side of a stair so children could fall.
Yeah.
If you don't have small children around and they're not coming down to the basement, it's okay. It's just an old stair. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but we will always recommend putting a railing on that open side just in case there's a child.
Okay.
You know, all the fun stuff that we used to do when we were kids, we have to tell you not to do. Like, we used to jump through these and jump onto the floor, you know, like all the stuff we used to climb around on and everything. And now kids can't do all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of stuff in this front corner. We've got your electric panel. We've got your gas piping coming in and your gas meter. We also have your main water line coming in and then going past the meter. That's your water meter, and then up and through the home. And then we also have your drain line going out. So we're gonna look at each one of these components. So we'll be in this little spot right here for a little while.
Okay.
All right, so starting with the drain pipe, if you come around here, let me move my tool bag, and you get down in here, I'm gonna move this plunger as well. So this is your drain line going out.
Yep.
So that's like what we call the sewer pipe. So it's your waste piping. So all the wastewater in the home goes down through this piping and out to the street. You have a clean out cap on there. That's that metal cap with a square nut on it. So in case you needed to open it up to clear a blockage or to run a camera into the pipe, you can do that.
Yeah.
This is cast iron. Cast iron has a typical average life expectancy of 80 to 100 years. So we're actually at even beyond that time frame, right? This house is 110 years old.
Okay.
So this pipe has reached its life expectancy. That's a concern for the portions of the piping that are inside the home, but also for the portions of the pipe that are going from here out to the street. So typically when we see this, if you have a vacant home or a flip or an estate sale or any kind of situation where people aren't currently living in the home, we don't really know how well this is going to drain out to the street. What we typically recommend in this case is getting a sewer scan. So that would be like you open up the pipe and have somebody who's a drain contractor run a camera through the pipe to make sure that from here out to the street, it's in good shape.
Okay.
It could be cracked, it could be crumbled, it could be offset. You could have like offset joints, partially crushed, roots growing into it, and you wouldn't know because you can't see inside the pipe. Even if we run a lot of water today, which we will, water will go through the pipe and just keep going. And even if you have a partial backup, we might not see it back up at the lowest point because the lowest point might be the bathroom upstairs. So we'd have to run like extraordinary amounts of water to be able to see that.
Okay.
So old cast iron drain pipes are really typical in these homes. We see them every day in these old homes, and oftentimes they drain fine. It's just that you want to know if you're the one where you're going to have to make that repair. Because that repair from here out to the street, that means excavating, meaning you got to dig and replace the section of pipe.
Okay.
And that can get expensive. They can line pipes. Some people don't like them. Some towns don't approve of it. So usually the replacement is the best solution.
Okay.
So what we look for when we look at the pipe is we're also looking at the underside of it for cracks, leaks, rusting, corrosion, deterioration. Right now I'm not seeing anything in this section of the pipe. So we're gonna keep going as we go and looking at all those other sections of the pipe. Now also underneath here is, I saw the water pipe is kind of coming in under the step here. So we wanna see where does that come into the house. Centipede, there's a glass. It's like an archaeological dig. All right, so I'm looking at the water pipe and I really can't see much here because there's all this debris and there's a tennis ball or something. What I'm trying to see is where does this pipe come into the home? What kind of shape is it in? And this does not look good. So, yeah, just Alan and Rebecca, you might want to just see this. I don't know if you probably hasn't seen this, but crouch way down in here and stick your head in. You can see that's the water pipe, and I'm just seeing all this corrosion on it. Probably an old steel pipe. Also, I don't want to poke it because if you have a leak upstream of the shutoff, you have to shut it off in the street. I just can't tell what I'm seeing because there's so much junk under here. But yeah, it's in really bad shape. So this piping looks like it's an old steel pipe coming in. It's got significant corrosion rusting on it. And what I can't tell is I can't really see all of the pipe because it's all under the floor and it's under these stairs and it's embedded in the floor. So the port that I can see looks in bad shape. Then it comes over here and it comes to your main shutoff. This is what we call the street side shutoff because it's goes through the water meter, comes up here and goes to what we call the house side shutoff. So this is the shutoff you would use in the case of an emergency. If there's water leaking out of piping or an appliance or some fixture upstairs, you're gonna run down here and you're gonna turn this off. The way that these work is perpendicular is off, parallel is on.
If you decide, like the owner decides to replace the line, the water line, will it be this also steel pipe or copper?
Great question. If you're running a new pipe to the house from the street, you would use plastic or copper. So from the street connection all the way to the house through the foundation. And then you're coming in and you can use copper or plastic inside.
Okay.
Plastic piping is really common these days for water supply piping.
Okay.
If you take this step apart and you got in there and you looked at the pipe and it was really rusted in the section that we saw, it's in really bad shape, but upstream of that, further, it's actually in good enough condition to use, you might decide to try to connect to that and just replace this section.
Okay.
But that would be like a Band-Aid fix because I'm thinking that pipe is the original pipe from the street anyway, and so probably they're gonna need a new pipe.
Yeah. And especially since like they probably will be replacing the sewer line anyway.
But yeah, those are separate pipes, but you could do them both at the same time.
Newton is the only one that can lay the water line because we had to replace it. They're the only ones that the town does it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And
Yeah.
Newton, that's just how they do it. We had to replace our water line at the other place, and it was like a month wait. We had to get an excavator. I think that cost like $5,000 between what they had to dig up. And
That's a good price.
but it wasn't too long.
Yeah, and it's not
This
too long here
concerns me
either.
because there's like such a weird foundation.
Well, you got the
There's
porch.
that porch.
Yeah.
How do they do that?
They'll pull it probably through. They'll
porch?
pull it through.
Oh,
They'll-
right.
They might. You'll have to talk to them about how
Yeah.
to do it, but they might use this pipe to pull the new pipe through. These Yeah, so you'll have to talk to them about that. That'll be interesting to see how they do it, but that is in bad shape. So other things we're seeing here, so what we call half-inch pipe, that's the size of the copper pipe. So it's half-inch supply pipe, and that half-inch goes up and over and through the main section of the basement. These days we wouldn't use half-inch pipe. It's too small for regular use in a single family. You would be using 3/4-inch pipe for the main section.
Okay.
And so half-inch pipe is fine if you have plenty of flow and pressure from the street, but if this neighborhood happens to have kind of low pressure, low flow, then this half-inch pipe wouldn't be so great, because you'd have to probably upgrade at least the section that you can access within the basement, which would be pretty easy to do, and it would improve things. So looking at the gas piping, so gas comes through the building right here underground. We're looking for corrosion on this pipe, damage, deterioration that could result in gas leaks. Right now it just looks old. I'm not too worried about that. We'll be going through checking to see if we can smell any odor of gas, and if we do, we put our gas detector on that. Then the gas goes past a shutoff, and then past another shutoff into the meter, and then up into wherever it needs to go from there. Okay, so your main panel is right here. This is what we call your main electric panel. So we talked about the meter socket outside. Power comes through this conduit into the panel, and you're gonna have your main disconnect at the top of the panel. So remember we talked about how I thought from outside that you have a 100 amp service. You see you do, you have a 100 amp main disconnect, and then you have your individual circuits for the home. This panel has 20 circuits. These days we use a 30 or a 40 circuit panel, so you can have plenty of room for multiple circuits, and you can add circuits as needed. As long as you don't have to add too many circuits here, you can keep this panel. And as long as you don't have too much stuff going through this panel, you don't have to upgrade the service. So what I'm seeing here is you have no 240 volt circuits. They're all single 120 volt circuits. You've got your oil fired heating system, so you're not using electric for that. You don't have a electric water heater, electric dryer, or electric range. I can just tell that from here because I don't see any 240 volt circuits. Those all require 240 volt circuits. So as long as you're keeping those that way, then you wouldn't have to upgrade your electric service. If you start adding electric appliances or a hot tub, that's when you're gonna tip the scales. Let's open this up and take a look.
And it seems like it was recently done, right? Like based on the wire.
That's a great question. So Simon, we're seeing called this modern Romex wire, a plastic sheathed wire with 2 conductors and a ground in it. So this is modern wire going up into the home. This home was built in 1915, so there could be still some original wire in places. And so we're gonna be looking for that during the course of the inspection today, but we see all modern wire going in here right now.
Okay.
So we could find, for example, a junction box in another location with the old wire going into that, and then the newer wire going out of that and coming over here.
Okay.
That's what we don't want to see really,
Yeah.
but we might see that. Okay. So that was a great question. This isn't brand new though. This is probably 20 plus years old. So we're gonna look at that when we get inside the panel and get a better sense of that.
And what about these wires?
Great question. So these are old original wires to the home. They are actually for grounding the electrical system. So originally the electric panel was right here. I can just tell that by this old boards here and how when we see these older homes, we see this regularly. So the original fused electric panel is right here. And these wires came out of that to ground the electrical system to the water piping. They were later cut off. So see how this is cut off right here? And this one actually is still, this one is actually still attached kind of to the water pipe. I don't want to pull on this water pipe too much, but they were cut off because the electrical system was upgraded. And when that happened, they ran a new ground wire, which is this guy right here, out of the electric panel, down. They actually connected it to a grounding rod that they drove into the foundation, and then they ran it here and connected to the water line, and then they bonded around across the water meter and attached it to the upstream side of so they replaced the ground and improved it. Ground goes like this, down, attaches to the water line, and then bonds across the water meter to the water piping on that side. That's this bracket right here. So these are no longer used. But looking at them, you can see the old ceramic insulated holder here. This is what we call a knob of like knob and tube wire.
Yeah.
You've probably heard that term before.
Yeah.
So that tells me that this home probably was originally wired. So this was an electric, there was electric power to this home originally. Not like some of the homes we see that are like 1860s homes. They wouldn't even have electricity when they were built. This home had electricity and it was probably wired with knob and tube originally.
Okay.
So we're gonna be looking for knob and tube branch wire in various locations of the home.
Yep.
Perfect
And so,
question.
like when you see like a knob and tube like wiring, is it like an issue?
So we're seeing remnants, meaning like this is not live, it's not being used, and originally it was only the ground. But we're concerned that you could have active live knob and tube circuits in other parts of the home. And the issue with knob and tube is that remember I told you that these wires have a ground?
Yeah.
Knob and tube wire just has the hot and the neutral and no ground. And also, it's old. I mean, it's over 100 years old, so it's brittle. And on top of that, it needs to not be covered with anything because that wire was meant to run in free air so it could keep it cool. If you jam insulation up against it or you put stuff on top of it, then you could actually make it into a fire hazard because it could potentially overheat. The other thing is that insurance companies don't like it. That's sort of like the big thing because even if it's totally safe, insurance company might say, we're not going to insure you if you have knob and tube, or we'll charge you extra for insurance if you have knob and tube. If they don't insure you, then you have to go into the pool. There's actually a pool in Massachusetts that allows you to get insurance, so you won't be in a situation where you can't get insurance, but you have to pay a lot for it. So if you have any knob and tube, you're really going to want to upgrade that to modern, grounded, safer wire. But if it's just a remnant of old wire and it's not live and it's not active and it's just left here, it's no hazard at all. It's just old wire.
Okay.
Okay, so looking at the panel, we got your main wires coming in here. 2 hot conductors. Each of these are 100 amps, each 120 volts. They go into your main disconnect right here. And then you have 2 bars coming out of the main disconnect, which feeds each row individually and alternately. So basically the first row is fed from the left, second row from the right, third row from the left, and so on. So when you have a 240 volt circuit, you're getting 120 from each side.
Okay.
We don't have any 240 volt circuits here, so it's hard to sort of demonstrate that. And then we're looking at all the circuit breakers in the panel, looking at the wiring. We're checking to see if you have the correct gauge of wire for the rating of the breaker. So like we were talking before about a 15 amp circuit needs to have a 14 gauge wire. 20 amps gonna have a 12 gauge. It's kind of hard to see, but this wire is a little bit thicker than this wire. We're also looking at, never do what I'm doing right now because there's live contacts in here. So you'll never, as a homeowner, you'll never take the panel cover off, but if for whatever reason it was ever off, never stick your hand in here. I'm looking at these 2 wires right here. So see how there's 2 wires on that breaker?
Yep.
And then down here, you got 2 more wires.
Yep.
And then 2 more breakers that have 2 wires on them. So we've got 5 total breakers with 2 circuits on them. That's called double tapping. Double tapping is not allowed on certain types of breakers, and it is allowed on other types of breakers. These type of breakers are not made to allow 2 circuits. So that's something that needs to be corrected.
Okay.
It's really easy to correct this. A lot of times double tapping comes up on inspections and people wonder like, is that gonna mean I have to rewire the house? No, it's super easy to fix this. So what you would do here is you would either join these 2 wires together inside the panel and run a 3rd wire into the breaker, as long as these 2 circuits these are going to are loaded appropriately for one single 20 amp circuit. Or you take one of these wires out and then run it into a new breaker over here. So between 3 open breaker bays and the kind of circuits we have in the home, it's probable that you'll be able to get away with fixing all this double tapping without having to enlarge the panel. But you'll probably fill it up with breakers, and then if you want to add another circuit after that, you might have to enlarge the panel. Okay.
How many double taps are in there?
5.
Question for you on the panel. There was 5 double tapped breakers.
Yeah, you probably have to upgrade. I mean, it's nice and neat.
Well, if let's say for instance in someone's house there was double tap breakers, how much would it cost to fix that?
Well, it all depends on. Mickey, can we put twins in here? No. I mean, we could upgrade, if you're saying at 100 amps, we could upgrade to like a 30 circuit. 100 amp 30 circuit, just the panel only.
What if I just wanted to just like separate one of the double taps and put another breaker in there?
Yeah, you can do that if you have the room. For a service call, I charge $295.
$295.
So I would
for
come in
service charge.
$295. I would separate your circuits if they allow twins in, But if you have the available space, a couple of breakers, you're looking at, $30 in breakers and then the service call fee.
Cool.
So this would be like an hour for an electrician, as long as he had the breakers in his truck. If he had to go to the Home Depot to get the breakers, it's like an hour and a half. Yeah, Alan would be like, I already checked the breakers. I've got them all ready. Yeah, exactly. So double tapping is one of the most common and easiest things to fix. Okay, so the other thing we check for is we check the brand, the actual manufacturer of the breakers. So this is a GE panel, GE main disconnect, all GE breakers. So that's good. If I'm seeing like Siemens breakers or other breakers for other manufacturers, that's going to be something to be questioning, because an electrician might have just put in a breaker that's not rated for this panel, and then that could be a fire hazard.
Okay.
You always want, these panels and the company's engineers are all checking to make sure these are all rated for this equipment, they fit in properly in this equipment, and they're gonna work properly in this equipment.
Okay.
Okay, so this panel is nice and neat. They did a good job with this wiring except for the double tapping. It's all modern wire. There's no old wire going into this panel. So that means to me that if I'm gonna find knob and tube somewhere, it's gonna have to be like out of another junction box somewhere else.
Yeah. You just spoke with Alan outside and you saw that like a crack near the basement window. Is this the same crack?
Yes, so we wanna look at this crack and we're gonna be looking for a couple of different things. First, we're gonna be looking for how wide is it? We're gonna be looking to see, do the planes of the concrete, are they offset at all? So if I run my hand across that, is that smooth? Or is it like, is there something that happened here where the actual wall shifted in or out? We're also gonna look at, does it taper? So in other words, is it wider up here and narrower down here? These are all things we're looking for in the crack to indicate whether we think it's like a major concern or a minor concern.
Okay.
In this case, I would call this a minor concern. So the crack isn't even really all that wide, even at the top. So the main concern that we have for this crack is water and moisture infiltration and termite infiltration. So like, remember the ground is like right around here.
Yeah.
So everything below here is dirt. So we could have termites finding their way into the home from outside without even having to go into open air. They can just come right into the crack. And we've seen that before. We've seen termite mud tunnels right at cracks. In this case, I don't have any sign of any termite infiltration here or termite activity. We do see some degradation to the concrete here a little bit, some staining, some efflorescence. That's the whitish stuff you see. And then at the very bottom of the crack, you can see it's kind of wet. So water is finding its way in a little bit. And so the correct repair for this would be an epoxy injected repair. What they do is they drill holes and they inject epoxy into the crack so it goes through the whole crack.
Okay.
When you see a crack in concrete, it's almost always gonna be all the way through the whole wall. So we're gonna see the crack here. The crack is actually right on the other side of this in the soil section on the outside.
Yeah.
So when you inject the epoxy, you fill the crack and seal it. If you just put like a coating on this, water's still gonna come in from outside and hit that coating and basically expand, freeze, deteriorate the patch, and it's just gonna crack again.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, any crack in any foundation should be monitored for further cracking or further opening up. I'm just not too worried about this particular one.
Okay. And is this related to the crack or not?
This wooden piece right here?
Yeah.
No, this wooden piece was put here probably to actually be a temporary support for this piping. This old cast iron piping before they put this in. This is your support. Actually, this isn't in great shape right here, and it's actually driven into the... So these are these metal strapping bars that hold the old waste piping up, and you can actually see they're going into this particular joist, which has some cracking. I wouldn't be too worried about that, but you're gonna wanna make sure it's supported.
Okay.
So there was probably a toilet in here. Yeah, this was where the old toilet was. So the old drain line went down and connected right down in there. It's actually kind of cool. You can see what the inside of old cast iron looks like. There was an old toilet in that little room. So see that down there, that section of pipe that's all corroded and open?
Yeah.
That's the old original drain pipe. So the cast iron went from here down, kind of like at this angle probably, but went further down and connected into the cast iron down there. And then the toilet, the old toilet that was in here, was tied into it there. And it actually had a vent pipe, which is that guy right there.
Yeah.
And then it went into the pipe right here. Here you can see where the PVC replaced it. This is a little iffy because you're not really supposed to replace cast iron pipe with PVC if you're in the middle of a run of cast iron, because the PVC is not able to support the weight of the cast iron.
Okay.
So usually when you're running a replacement section of piping, when you're replacing a section of cast iron, you would replace it with cast iron.
Oh, okay.
In this case, it's a little different because this is well supported right here, and then this section comes off of that. And by the time you get over here, this is already supported in this section, and so the PVC isn't really carrying any of the cast iron. But there are plumbers who would look at this and say, you shouldn't have used PVC in this whole section.
Yeah.
Or you go PVC for the rest.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
You can
the whole
go
thing.
from cast iron and then go PVC up.
Yeah.
You just can't go back to cast iron.
Yeah. Okay. So Morgan, what is this cracking on the beam?
So this is your main beam. It's a nice big timber here. So this looks like it's about 8 by 10 inch timber beam, substantial beam. What happens is when the timber dries, the grain will open up and it'll actually crack. And that cracking is what we call checking. Not a problem if it's not super wide and it doesn't actually compromise any of the load-bearing components or locations on the beam. For example, sometimes we'll see checking that goes down and then wraps around the corner of the beam and keeps going, and that can weaken the beam. But if it's straight across and thin like this, or sometimes it's actually through this part of the beam, it's not a problem.
Okay.
So this is not an issue right here, this type of cracking.
Okay.